Testing, testing, one, two, three. Testing, one, two, three. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, one, two, three. Oh, okay, okay. There we go. I probably had to up. Sorry, I probably had to update. Okay. Thank you guys. A number of you here. Wow. Ooh, thank you. Um, again, this is RPG with DBJ. Thank you, creatives, community, and kind folks out there for helping me get it started. I probably had an update and it resets everything. And just before I go live, I don't know if I have sound until I have sound. Okay, forget all that. Today's World Building Wednesday, and I thought we would talk about. I've been doing this theme of like the OSR versus modern Dungeons and Dragons Fifth Edition, and some adventure world building, setting design, and encounter creation. And I thought we would talk about ooh, location versus situation based encounters. Now, I know for many of you, this delineation really amounts to not much of a thing, but for those who are brand new into the game system, or maybe you're a huge fan of the OSR and you may not understand or even particularly like modern conventions, I thought we would have a conversation where we kind of talk about like the good and bad of both, and then we can pick and choose what works for us and the people that we game with. Oh, thanks, Z. Like, though the universe was waiting for me to make it to your stream. All right, so allow me, do me the honor to allow me to give you my definition of what location versus situation based adventuring is, and then we can start to talk about it, break it down a little bit. So, classically in the OSR, location based adventuring meant that because of how the game was designed, we would have these things called modules. And despite the fact we didn't have very many worlds uh, produced by TSR, we had, Greyhawk, and throughout the 90s, we did have locations like um, whole world settings like Dark Sun. There were still people playing in Mystara and things like that. So the modules had to be as neutral as possible. Hey, here's an adventure in a mountain. You can place a mountain anywhere, right? Here's an adventure in the I'm going to say it, the accursed desert, and a desert could be anywhere, and so on and so forth. And especially when you got into Planescape and you could go to different planes of adventure, different dimensions, then it really expanded. So then when you picked up a module, a classic one like Keep on the Borderlands or the Isle of Dread, despite the fact that some of them were, especially the Isle of Dread, was placed within a specific location, you could pick that up and put that island anywhere. So adventure became location based. Players would create a character who would adventure out into locations, and you would find these hidden locations. And most of civilization was relegated to a very small diameter. So, despite the fact of, say, Greyhawk having this vast map, most of civilization just traveled according to um, uh, routes of communication and routes of economic fortitude. Just go from A to B, B to A, and that's it. You might have some bandits, but leaving the path to safety was pretty dangerous in these worlds, and the player characters were self-motivated to go to those locations. um in I'm looking at our co-host here. In situation-based adventuring, a particular set of circumstances motivates the characters to go out and solve a situation that's not specific to a location, but more specific to the situation. A situation would be individuals are kidnapped, nobles, rich merchants, the classic, princess is captured and the hero goes out to save the princess. Now, in those situations, maybe that individual is taken from place to place. Maybe there is a time limit. The I don't know, the third moon of Talaxis is about to smash into the planet, and the player characters must adventure from A to B to rescue people before the moon crashes. There's a evil necromancer on the horizon that's acquiring a huge army, undead army, and people are fleeing, and the situation is to defeat the necromancer wherever the necromancer is, and to travel along a path to get to the place where that person has destruction. And it's not necessarily motivated by location. Again, we're making a delineation here, which to some of you may be going like scratch your heads, like, well, couldn't it be both? Of course it can, but in essence, it's more of a motivation of time in essence, or and or character personal. They are personally involved in the situation. Hey, my the wizard's tower where I was taught magic will be destroyed. I must go there to solve a situation. It could be a murder mystery. It could be bringing back the balance of a power because something has been disrupted. Meaning, again, the MacGuffin is taken. Maybe there's a magic item that the community needs to restore order, or it could be there's an ancient curse. And the PCs must, stop the ancient curse. It could be an invasion of some sort, in a mundane invasion, an army assembled from one place to another, and the player characters need to navigate through to stop a particular situation, or it could be a extraterrestrial invasion or something like that. For our co-host say mention that Zamar says, I mean, wouldn't be the same as the difference between character focused adventures versus situation based adventures. Or why would you lose a PC and keep playing even in story heavy games? Exactly, and the, we're going to break down like the good and bad of each of those, meaning like if it's character focused and a player character can't play any longer, then why would another one step forward, right? If it's focused around a particular group of characters. And in location based, you never had that situation. Let's go on. Samara says, I guess I mean if the PCs were the main character of the story rather than the situation or location itself were the main character. And exactly. And again, some of the bonuses and penalties for doing one versus the other, or leaning heavily for one versus the other, and we'll get into it. Yeah, Mike says Zamar essentially an organic world, a world which does what it does with several villains, issues, etc. Yeah, regions of certain cultures that exist regardless of levels. Giants live where they live, regardless if the players are ready for them to be there. Yep. In the OSR, balancing, mechanical balancing numbers and situations, there was a little bit of that, but it's like, hey, listen, if the blue dragon lives in a city state and rules over a city state in the accursed desert and you decide to go there at first level, then that just happened. And monsters, how do I say that? Monsters understood their level in the world, and it didn't mean that very powerful monsters would just crush the PCs. Maybe they would recruit those player characters. That blue dragon might send emissaries out to figure out why these you, you, you know hard on the outside, soft on the inside, tasty treats would be coming after the blue dragon. The blue dragon might say, you might not want to come after me, but I'll make a deal with you so that I don't kill you. Maybe you can do something for me instead, right? Mike says players reacting to a world versus a world reacting to players. Yeah. He's like, yeah, word it better, but word it better than I can right now. I used all my good brain cells writing until 3 a.m. Ooh, well, good for you. I hope you got a lot done. So again, in the OSR, one of the underlying traits in the OSR was that players were self motivated. It was you had what today we would call story hooks. The Ant King's like, yeah, that hypothetical blue dragon sounds like a really cool dude. Yeah, well, in the OSR type of early gaming, there were lots of situations in which player characters had to make deals with entities that they knew at some point they would be double crossed, or at least were biding their time, right? So, yeah, today we can't fight that blue dragon. We'll probably commit ourselves to going on a mission for that blue dragon. But at some point, yeah, we see you, blue. We see you. We smell the ozone, right? So the um, in the OSR's capacity to teach us what to do is that before session zero became a word that we use, before we start world building with our player characters to figure out situations in OSR, it was, listen, if you're going to make a character, make a self-motivated character that you want to go out into the world and you want to gather things. Now, the myth of a bunch of greedy characters just going to get gold because gold meant experience points. We talked about this before, that it wasn't just about greedy characters in OSR. It was gathering resources because in order to gain levels, to learn magic, to eventually retire your character with a fort or a wizard's tower or a temple, or a thieves guild, you needed that gold to pay for that, as well as paying for retainers and henchmen. Wizards had to pay for all the spells that went into their spell book, and for research you hire sages and spies and all kinds of other things to spend your money on, as well as constructing those retirement homes for your characters to then start the cycle all over again for low level characters, was a thing in the OSR. And you needed that money to build a temple for a lawful or good deity. You needed the money to create a fort or a castle for your martial types and things like that. So it was never the idea of needing to create story hooks. If I purchased the Isle of Dread and said, "Hey guys, I got the Isle of Dread," the player's like, "Great, we're going to go to the Isle of Dread." It wasn't, we wouldn't have a player at our table in the old days that would go, "Nah, my character's a baker. I'm not going to go." That wasn't a thing. Today, it's a weird. It's like everyone's looking at the one player that's like, "Yeah, it doesn't make sense for my character to go." Going like, then why are you here? Why are you playing with us if you didn't make a character that wanted to go on an adventure? Uh, you see this happening in cycles on a lot of threads about players not picking up on story hooks, and I think it's a little bit ridiculous. Mike says, I prefer living worlds, but that's because I reflect on my own gaming from the 70s and 80s. Yeah, organic worlds create a dynamism that's not available in the I'm the hero of the story worlds. And again, we are comparing and contrasting, right? The downside to location based adventuring, meaning the accursed desert has a location with dangers, the mountains have a location with dangers, the archipelago of isles, maybe there's a city of shadows. If the players aren't motivated to go there, and they won't engage in adventure, as well as the fact that a lot of the modules that were created didn't really have a lot of great hooks to to make it personal for the character. So, for example, on the distant horizon, there's a wizard's tower that's been vacant, but suddenly is disgorging dangerous monsters, and the people are scared. In a modern context, we would attach the player character to that wizard's tower. Maybe there was the player learned magic from that tower, or knew about it from centuries, and we would wrap the story around that player character. Now, there's nothing stopping you from doing that itself, but there weren't very many rules for that. It was just a matter of hey, we just have to come up with a good idea for you to be there. I always defaulted to letting the players decide. Listen, what here's the Isle of Dread. You decide why you're going. Right? We're not going to get this. We're not going to get this started unless you decide why it is that you're going to this particular location. And I wonder why I'm flipped around. That is very weird. But anyway, Samara says, I will be honest, if I had the power of a god and a group of plucky 15-year-olds trolloped into my lair in the wee hours in the morning, there's a 50-50 chance I would kill them outright, as well as the heads of my defense, due to the tiredness and their gross ineptitude. Yeah. Or just hire the kids and kill my heads of defense because the humor of it all. Yeah. You're so right. And listen, that happened in the OSR, right? Kill one player character to make it a point to let everybody else know what the heck was going on, and then the players are like, "Ooh, we are first level." That you know, uh, or they would get enslaved or whatever. But a lot of times it would just You just cook a player character, and then everybody else would fall in line. Yeah. Mike's like, a blue dragon warlord of a glittering city within the accursed desert is totally viable. It's an accursed desert because the Cyan Pasha rules the region with an iron fist claw. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mike's like, yeah, just a little world building. I just, I pull that stuff out of my ass and then reuse it over and over again. But you're absolutely right, guys. Like the what happens, one of the myths in OSR is that players just turn corners and things happen, and then they move on and turn another corner, and all the things that happened in the past don't catch up with them, and that's not necessarily true. If the players Another limitation of location based gaming is that if the players go to the desert and then decide, yeah, we caused trouble, but we're going to turn around and go towards the swamp or the mountains or the islands, the things that they did in the desert still matter. And there could be agents that will prevent them from going back where they came from, or try to renege on deals, or double cross them, or hire them, or ambush them, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's not a matter of, well, we left one location and it's no big deal, we're going to go to the other location. The other, I'll say, problem with location based gaming is too many options. So if the players are given too many story hooks, hey, there's a desert and swamp and mountains and the valley and the islands and the swamp and a desert and whatever, the city state. If they're given too many options, they might have analysis paralysis. Do we stop the necromancer in the city? That's one. Do we go to the mountains? There's the Five Kings Mountain. There's the accursed desert. Okay, so which one do we go to? I don't know. And they spend 3 sessions trying to figure it out. So that is one issue. And we've seen role playing games, indie role playing games like Blades in the Dark, Dungeon World, 13th Age, et cetera, where they talk about icons and fronts and clocks and things where things are still happening in the background, but right now, whatever the players decide becomes the focus, and everything else kind of falls to the background just a little bit. Um, I think one of the greatest things about location based gaming is that you can always keep work. You can throw these hints out there, and you might not have even finished working on something, but you could always throw it out there, and this becomes over prep becomes the fuel for your what's it called, improv, right? You created this desert adventuring. They never go to the desert, but you're like, man, I can still use this information. They either one day in the future might go there, or you reskin everything that you've already created. And now when people talk about not having improv skills, they go, well, I still have something left in the fuel tank because I created this months ago. You can just pull out all your notes, reskin everything in the desert, put it in the swamp, change some of the flavor, and you're still done. Change that blue dragon to a green one and keep the same flavor and NPCs, and you're done. The End King says this is why newer RPGs are so hyper specific now. They want to drill your character's purpose into you. This is monster of the week. You hunt monsters. Exactly. And nothing. I love indie games, and I love that focus because let's be honest, like someone like myself, I've got 30 years in my job. I've got 5 years before I retire. I don't have a lot of time. I'm an old dude. I've got a family. So I, I don't have time to go to the tavern to, kind of have to force other player characters to get involved because they're all 5 characters are sitting in the corner of the four corner tavern, with their backs turned or whatever the case might be, Shadow McDangerous carving the table with their knife or whatever. And then it's like 3 sessions of just trying to get the players together to go. So we don't have time for that. So a lot of games like Monster of the Week, it's just like, listen, there's a monster. We're always going to fight one each week. Let's just go. That's what we do, right? So in a modern context, the idea of location-based adventuring is getting players motivated when they aren't motivated to do the thing, and it's mechanizing a thing to get past. Let's just start at the front door, right? mind you, you can always do that, but yes, it's very focused around, players that are like, I don't care about some wizard's tower, but I care about the wizard's tower that's my uncle. It's the knight doesn't care about what's happening on the other side of the mountain range, but the knight is like, oh, my mentor is captured, I need to go to save my mentor, or something. Zamar says that might explain why I decided to make the roll d6 bare bones, after I started making roll d6 sword and sorcery. Yeah, maybe your role playing game there. There isn't I believe it's called Open D6, that was uh, created by Mayfair Games, the original Star Wars, and that's open as well too. And D6s are easy to get, right? I mean, a lot of that has to do with that making bare bones games. Like, yeah, if hey, grab some dice, grab some players, everyone pick an archetype. Even character creation, easy character creation, and monster creation is a thing now. Where, like, listen, all of you are spies or assassins or knights or explorers or envoys or something. Yeah. Zamara continues and says, my players scared off a big bad while their group were low level. So the big bad came back when the players were higher level with an army in tow to kill the players in their new town. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a myth of the OSR, where it's like random encounters and random events, and um, are just are the literal embodiment of randomness, as opposed to continuing to build those onion layers of your world building. That if the players go to the desert, they have that desert adventuring has a relationship to other places around your world, that the players may come across people who are from the swamp that might be emissaries to entreat with the blue dragon that the players may not even know about, but they meet them along the way and then find out that the world, it's iceberging, right? If your players go to the desert and they find that there are people who have traveled very far away from the swamps, and the players are like, "Ooh, there's things going on in the background I didn't know about." It's a great way to iceberg, where it seems like your world is bigger and living, where all you're doing is throwing in little hints and like little spices on top of the meal to make it taste better, and the players feel like you did a whole lot more than you really did. Yeah, Zamar says, "Why change the blue dragon into a green one? Have the blue dragon take over the swamp, driving out the green one. Why? Because the PCs left it to gain power." That is another thing, right? Like, um this situation versus location based thing that I came up with. And listen, in the tabletop RPG community, we love to point out extremism, because that's the thing that's sexy, right? Uh, People were just like, I never prep, I always improvise, and the other people were like, I always over prep because improvisation is stupid. When in reality, both exist simultaneous, right? All over prep is is inspirational fuel for improvisation, and most improvisation that's unused becomes preparation for later, right? So the same thing, if you create 20 NPCs and you only use 3 of them, you've got 17 NPCs sitting in the back burner that you get to use, that you've already over prepped. And so, it's the whole thing, and it goes back and forth. And situational gaming, meaning like, a situation is about to happen. The player characters are tasked with going out and collecting the MacGuffin. What Yes, and Z points out the perfect thing, right? I over prep so I can improvise later. And the uh yeah. Listen, we're on the same page. You guys know that. We're all here talking about the same things, and we have the same maybe we don't use the same wording or definitions, but we're all pretty much on the same page. And one of the difficulties with creating situation based gaming and making it hyper focused around the player characters is, a player. Let's go back to the wizard and the wizard's tower that's disgorging monsters. If the player who's attached to that wizard's tower, my character is a wizard, I want to go save my mentor, what happened, I'm going to adventure. If that player can't arrive, can't show, their player character gets killed. Maybe the player gets bored with their character. Now you have a situation and no one's connected to that situation. So, and then as you guys know in your own social medias, you start to get the how do I get my players motivated to attach the hooks. So a lot of it is self motivation, getting players. Never ever ever have your players make characters that are not motivated to go out to the world. Now there's a caveat to this. The player may say, listen guys, my character is going along with this, but my character is going to act like they don't want to go. I go back to the A Team, the old TV show, the A Team, where you had BA, bad attitude, and Mr. T playing BA, who's like, I don't want to fly. And this happened it was a half hour comedy adventure show, right? And it's like, I don't want to fly. My character doesn't like flying. And they would always come up with an excuse to knock BA out or trick BA or whatever to get him on a helicopter or a plane and they'd fly somewhere and then he'd be out and he's like, oh, I'm all upset, pity the fool, whatever, right? It's you can play a character that pretends I don't want to go, I want to stay at home and be a baker. But the player's like, guys, just I'm just role playing my character a little bit, but I will never fight a reason to go. Like maybe the character is like a coward and it's like, I'm not going to stay at home. I'm going to go with you guys because you guys know how to defend me, or something like that. Yeah. And the End King says throwing away excess notes is easier than inventing notes on the fly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just yeah. Keep all your excess notes and keep all your encounters. I used to use 3x5 cards and I would write down like at the top, like some monsters. I'd write some notes, maybe some background information, maybe something about the environment. And I would just put the 3x5 card in a box and I'd write up another one and all that kind of stuff. And then when I need to throw something random in there, I'd pull out one of the cards, put it on the table and keep going. And Zamar says, I tell my players to make characters with reasons to adventure, yet a hard line on when they will stop, right? Leave the group when you find out what happened to your brother or get that 10,000 gold. That's an that's a situation as well. A lot of times, especially because we're all creatives, right? We're all creatives in the community. And while we try to be kind, sometimes we get hyper focused on hey, my character is a noble knight that's trying to regain their honor. And one of the problems with that situational based character is, well, if you get revenge or get your honor back or save your loved one, then your character has no more particular reasons to keep adventuring. Now, this is okay if above board that session zero, and remember, session zero can happen at any time. If you have the type of player that keeps creating new characters and just say, hey, listen, if my character finds their lost sibling, can I just make another character? And everyone knows that. And you shrug and go, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. You played a paladin or a herald in level up advanced fifth edition. You play that character. And then after 2 levels, they fulfilled their quest and you decide to want to play a druid that got pulled into the yeah, as long as everyone agrees that's the situation, which is why I'm a big proponent of experience travels with the player, not the character. If you are a player that's value added into the game, your experience travels with with you, the player, not the character. If your character dies and you make a new one, they're just the new level. I don't all that trying to balance lower levels and your character starts out at first level and everyone else is eighth level. All that BS. Don't even bother with that. If that person's value added to your group, then it travels with that person. That's what I always say. All right, the End King says this is why Batman isn't trying to beat up Joe Chill. Yeah, and that's a situation of creating characters built around a specific situation and not location can really hamper because we're creators, we want to create adventures, we want the players to get out there and do their thing, but if they get the revenge, they fulfill their um what their character's concept is. If Batman finds the person that kills his parents, if that's the main focus, then what happens? Now, of course, we have other storytellers who come along and unretire characters, and it's like, well, Joe Chill is just a symptom of a deeper part where Gotham City. It's why Gotham City's crime will never be solved, right? Because then it defeats the purpose of having Batman exist in Gotham City, and uh, you can go on and on with that, like post-apocalyptic settings. Uh, Almost universally, there's no cure for the what happened after the apocalypse. Nuclear war, disease, zombie apocalypse, doesn't matter. There's no cure for it because if you solve that, the situation is solved. But in the OSR, the location-based adventuring has the other situation where other issue about not having situations. There's a desert, there's mountains, there's forts, there's city states. These are great places to go. And if your players are just sitting around a campfire twiddling their thumbs and going, I don't have a reason to go there, I've got my magic sword. Or you get the player that's like, my character's a baker, they have no reason to go out and travel. So using elements of both modern gaming where you have a hyper specificity. Hey, this is what's going on. The city state is burning, literally or figuratively. You need to go there to stop it, player characters. And then for modern gaming, going to location based adventuring where, listen, you are adventurers. Why? You need to come up with a good reason because the desert and the mountains and the city state and the swamps all need your attention, and you're going there for a specific reason. And it behooves you to come up with the reason and start going. Yeah. Yeah. The End King is like, man, I'm starting to hate this baker, and he isn't even real. Yeah. Hey, listen, we've seen, come on now, we've seen movies and television and even read books where the creators create a character that where you just hate the character. How many How many horror movies have we seen where you have a character in there that absolutely positively makes all the wrong decisions, right? They go off on their own. They sabotage the method to escape. They backstab people within the group knowing that it's safer in the group, right? There's always that character and it's like, "Oh, there's having a player that's always like doing the excuse of, well, that's what my character would do without understanding the meta of, listen, we're all in this together. We're all going to the Isle of Dread. Our game master just purchased, literally peeled the plastic off of this new module that they got. I know you guys don't, you young folk don't remember those. But yeah, the Isle of Dread X1 was an actual module and it was an island. And the idea was to go to the island and explore it. And there wasn't a heavily specified reason to get there or to solve a situation. It was literally one of the first exploration modules. It was, here's an island, you show up anywhere on the edge of the map and then you just explore hex to hex. And there was a meta um situation going on with like tribes and dinosaurs and things like that on Isle of Dread, but not really. There wasn't a reason. There wasn't a huge reason to go. You just went. You either went or you didn't. You know. So, pretty interesting stuff from the OSR where it kind of taught us gold was the reason to go out adventuring to achieve other goals, but over time the myth just defaulted down to a bunch of greedy bastards going out to random locations to steal stuff, and it wasn't really the case, but it was. Zamar says that is another reason to have them gain henchmen, followers, men at arms, and retainers. Those are people who can pick up where your character left off, and I wish it was hard coded into role playing. It's been brought back very specifically with DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classics. The idea that as your character travels and you hire henchmen and retainers and men at arms and hirelings and things, that as your character gained levels, fifth, sixth, seventh level, you had these 0 through X other characters that went along. And when one character had to stop adventuring, because there were reasons to stop adventuring, maybe your character was a wizard and you wanted to go um, study magic, or your character was a warrior, like a fighter, and you wanted to have weapons made, and your character there were reasons for downtime, and though you picked up another character and you went along. And it wasn't that you thought your characters were useless, it was rather when one was down, another one would pick up. It wasn't always due to death, although death was a constant churn, but we were used to the churn. Today, it's hyper focused on my character story, and if my character dies, I'm a table flip because this game is stupid, rather than having the cousin, the loyal men at arms, the squire, the um, the young acolyte or whatever who would follow the player character, who would pick up where the other character left off to keep continuing. Or as in many of our very popular intellectual properties, we get attached to a side character, and at some point, the writer, the creator, the filmmaker, the television showrunner picks up that character, writes a different story, and we get to see the trials and tribulations of the side characters. Star Wars is very, very popular for that, and I'm with the End King. I hate the baker too. So Zamara says, "Hey, let's burn down the baker's shop and home. Usually, the same in one. That will force him on the adventure to gain money, where we can kill him in the worst ways possible with success." Yeah, your character's going now. Again, if everyone agrees to retire their characters, that can be a thing. We've had situations in our own gaming group where, for some strange reason, the person playing the baker character convinces everybody else to retire their characters to become shop owners or something like that. Which I don't know why that was a thing or is a thing amongst players that are like, "Hey, we're going to stop, open up a business." And it's like, yeah, but the game doesn't even it doesn't even support that kind of adventuring. But again, let me circle back to location based adventure design and in gaming also is a good way for us who are suffer from world builders disease. And yes, I'm DBJ. I'm drinking coffee at World Builders Anonymous. Some of us suffer from world builders disease, and those of us that do, by building adventure into locations, you can then divorce it from what the players are trying to do specifically right now. So you can keep writing notes and building and feel like you're accomplishing something, even if it's just for yourself. Much like people painting figures, those of us that suffer from world builders disease keep building worlds that will never be. We're always pushing the edge of the map, and they'll never be fully explored. But this gives us space to do that. Um, so that they can adventure. And in the old days, I see what Zamar is saying here. In the old days, where it took weeks, months, even years, sometimes of downtime for players to learn new tricks of the trade, to craft magic items and things, you could still adventure because you had other characters. Heck, I have a whole video about character death and characters missing, and how do you rationalize why a character isn't there. And the real reason is, hey, my wizard can't go because they're studying magic for 3 months and they have to do a ritual, but my wizard's bodyguard can sure go on the adventure, right? A great way for a reason why your character isn't gaming, and then a good reason why your character comes back, or a new character comes back if one of them dies. So there's nothing wrong. Why not make multiple characters, right? Hey guys, you have you can start session zero and say, hey, listen, you guys have 9 levels of characters you can create. You can create as many characters as long as they all add up to 9 levels, and you can mix and match, take them with you. One's a retainer of another, one's a loved one of another, one's loyal to whatever the case might be, right? One's indebted to the other, and you could just adventures. Like, can I make 3 third level characters? Sure. Can I make a second level character and a 7th level character? Sure, go ahead. And then you could have people switch off and adventure that way. Zavara says, gave a good reason for slow hit point recovery. Another character jumps in. Yeah. Another character jumps in while your main character heals up. Heck, it could end up being your new main character. And OSR gaming, that happened all the time. Happened all the time. Zamar says, I don't. I only have 7 worlds I am trying to build at once, including 2 that I am building the past and one the future. Yeah. Now that I write it out, maybe my DM is right. I do have some unaddressed problem making me want to build entire worlds. Yeah, that's and that's always the issue, right? Like your players might be invested in your accursed desert section of your world while you're building out the swamps, and there is this push and pull of, am I wasting my time building the swamp because they're always interested in the desert? Do they even want to leave? They act like they don't want to explore the rest of my world. I feel like all my interesting stuff is now in the swamp. Do I stop? Am I upset? Do I explain this to the player characters? And my you guys know this is cyclical. You got to talk about it. One of the most common pieces of advice given out there by us talking heads is talk about it amongst everyone. And when I say talk about it, it's not we need to come up with an answer. Sometimes it's just talking about it out loud. Talking about your issue out loud when you don't have an answer and everyone else doesn't have an answer. Sometimes just saying, you know what, guys? Hey, I know we love the accursed desert, but I have this is situation where I've got these great ideas for this swamp. What do you guys think? Now they might now understand if you ask a question, you got to accept the answer. They might say, "We really don't have any reason to go there right now." You go, "Okay, that's great. I just really have this idea. So just bear with me. I might be distracted a little bit because I've got this thing stuck in my head." And someone else might go, "Well, why do you think? Was it because of that show we saw the other day?" Like, yeah, remember episode 4, blah blah blah. You're like, "Oh yeah, I remember episode 4." And maybe that does get them motivated because they really don't know what you're working on, right? But if you talk about it out loud, it's a great thing. The Yan King says, only loosely related, but a buddy and I were co-running a superhero game, and we all made multiple characters to give the illusion of a big team, and it was great. I wish we again to delve this out or to unravel this a little bit. Um, Dungeon Crawl Classics has newly formed in the community over a past number of years the idea of the funnel of making multiple characters 0 level to run them through a dangerous funnel to then have the character or characters that survive at the end become first level and they become main characters, and the funnel is the background of that. So you play commoners or undescribed characters, they go through their situation and it's like, oh, this is really good. Now that the funneling meant that you had to create multiple characters. And today, having the pendulum swing from location based over to situation based has almost made it um, almost vulgar to say that, hey, can I make 3 player characters? I know we're starting at 5th level. Can I make 3 of them and then kind of pick and choose which one I want to play, or have a default character? Because it almost sounds like an actor not invested in the character they're playing. It, if you hired an actor to play a character and you wrote a screenplay, and the actor's like, "Yeah, I like the character, but I'm not really interested." Hey, they pull out notes in their back pocket. I have a better character that's kind of the the mythological almost standardization of don't make more than one character because you're not invested in the current one. And that's not necessarily true. I think there's a way to narratively incorporate the idea of having multiple characters, having giving background for their relationships, making multiple characters that are connected to other player characters. Maybe one makes a squire for someone else's knight. Someone makes an acolyte that is, or someone that was their life was saved by another player character, and now they're devoted. Han Solo and Chewbacca style. Any of those things. And Zamar says the thing that I am finding is that a lot of people are using DCC to run one shots, only using the funnel. They are treating the gimmick as the whole point of the game. Not everyone is, but enough are. I'm totally with you on that. There's a um, there's a it fills a niche, right? Like it's the excuse to play a game, and you're not necessarily devoted to those characters, and sometimes it can be pretty fun. Monster of the Week is a good example of literally a role playing game that came out of a TV trope where you have a bunch of plucky characters that all surround each other, and they go on an adventure for, air quotes, monster of the week. Um, there are games based around all kinds of kids on bikes is hyper focused, and Tales from the Loop, Things from the Flood is hyper focused about kids running around, getting into trouble, and things of that nature. And there's nothing wrong with it as long as it's as everyone agrees that that's what you're using it for. No one cares if you're the DC. Believe me, the DCC people are just like, as long as you play the game and buy the books, they're not going to be too upset about it. Now, what could happen is if all the individuals involved in it aren't on the same page. Maybe someone is like, "Hey, this one shot should be a five shot," and everyone else is like, "Nah, I'm done. I'm not really interested in this kind of gaming." Um, Going back to our location versus situation based, if a player becomes unmotivated, their situation changes. Whereas everyone else might say, "Hey, listen, we're still going to go after the necromancer. They destroyed our small town." And one player may be thinking like, "Nah, I'm not really. I don't you know, revenge, we've seen that before. I'm not really interested. I want to play something that's a little bit more introspective or whatever, or deals with my character's background and whatnot." And everyone else is going like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, where's all this coming from?" Right? We understand that what you want to do, but maybe it's not appropriate right now. And again, we all understand the it's not perfect because it's not perfect right now disease. Someone makes a character and wants to, create this build, this multi-class build that's going to do all this stuff in combat, and everyone else is like, "Yeah, but we agreed that we are going to do political intrigue. Your character doesn't fit, And there's nothing wrong with your character. It's just circumstances don't fit right now. Um, so, circling back to location versus situation. Um, the One of the things to comprehend in our brains sometimes from the OSR versus modern day, and how modern gaming kind of doesn't like that location based adventuring, is that, like Mike Gould brought up, that the world keeps moving. And so when you have locations that are dangerous, but if you leave them alone, nothing happens. It feels like it's like a video game, or at least old style video games, where nothing happens until you open up the door and then there's a monster inside. And if you keep the door closed and you never open up the door, the monster's just sitting there. One way of getting around that is to, like 13th Age, like Dungeon World, and some of these other indie games, is to drop hints about things happening. So let's say there's an ancient crypt. Let's get away from the desert. I'm always talking about the accursed desert, these other places. But let's say there's an ancient crypt in a deep forest, and the player characters know about the ancient crypt, but they decide not to go there. Or maybe they even come up with rationalizing reasons why they shouldn't even bother going there. "Hey, it's an ancient crypt. We shouldn't be my character would never plunder an ancient crypt because I have too much respect for the heroes and the dead," or something. And you go, "Fine, that's cool." But you could um, Indiana Jones the whole thing, meaning that there might be other adventurers who want to go, and the PCs know about other adventurers who have despicable intentions and want to gain you know, plunder ill-gotten gains from the crypt, and the PCs know about this. They know, they're told about through rumors or contacts, or even told to their face, "Oh, you're not going to go to the crypt? Me and my buddies are going to go, and yeah, we don't like each other. I'm going to go instead." And that may force the players to go, "Wait a minute, what if they uncover powerful magics, or unleash an ancient curse, or release the undead or something?" And that goes from a location to a situation. Another thing may be the Indiana Jonesing of it. May be that maybe the place becomes excavated, right? Like, there's an ancient crypt that's disgorging monsters. Maybe the population decides to deal with it outside the player characters, and encampments are created, and pathways are carved out. And in the first Indiana Jones movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, we saw hundreds of people being hired by the bad guy to try to find the entrance to the ancient crypt, even though our heroes had the mechanisms to find it. Right? I mean, yeah, sure. Mike says Schrodinger's adventure. The monster doesn't act until you open the door. Yeah, that's a those of us that are in our modern have our modern concepts. Uh, Sometimes that can like scratch at the back of your brain, like why is a Medusa in the dungeon not doing anything until I open the door? And so one way is to, well, open up the door and have things happen. So maybe what's happening in the ancient crypt starts reaching out. We see the classic um innocents from the village get attacked. The villagers hire PCs, please solve our problem. PCs go to ancient crypt. But if they decide not to go, have things start happening. And at a certain point in your world building, guess what? Destroy part of your world. That can be a little hard to swallow because no one likes to slay their darlings. But burning down part of your world, and I don't mean physically burning, well, although I do mean that. But what I mean is, if the undead are released, let the undead roam over that part of your world. If an ancient curse is released, let the desert become accursed because of the curse that came out. Right? Let the allow the crypt to become the main headquarters of a big bad evil person. And what a great way that you design the crypt for third level characters, talking about Dungeons and Dragons here specifically, and they go off and become eighth level characters. Well, maybe the big bad gathers followers, gains more magic, becomes more powerful, hears about the rumors of these powerful adventurers on the other side of the world, and is trying to um, vanguard themselves against the interlopers that might be coming after them next. Right? Um, what a way to end the accursed desert in the Blue Dragon by an emissary leaving there and making a beeline into the swamp or the dense jungle or whatever to alert the next locational being about the people that are coming for them. Yeah. Mike Mike says, letting PCs slay your darling means the next group of PCs have to deal with the repercussions of that action. Yeah, yeah. What is it? Nature abhors a vacuum. You slay a big bad evil, there are going to be others that want to jump in. Now, got to be careful with that because the players might embed themselves and go, "We're not leaving the desert. We're going to help these people out." But again, emissary from the swamp comes to the PCs. Hey, I know you're in your beloved city state, but we really need you to help us out. And then again, location becomes situation, situation becomes location, etc. Yeah, Mike says never let the PCs become never be scared to let the PCs wreck your world because the next group of PCs have to live in that mess. Yeah, there's always consequences. Now, I will say be careful. You always want consequences, but they always don't have to be negative. So don't get in the habit of what's the rewarding the players with punishing them. That can become That's where you get the killer DM trope coming about, where every time the players kill a bad guy, a new bad guy and a new problem shows up that undermines the player's success. Instead, you want to give them the success and let the consequences happen maybe elsewhere, and give them a number of loyal retainers, give them information about what's happening on the other side of the world, things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Now the End King points out a perfect reasoning here. Personally, if the PCs embedded themselves in the desert and help, that sounds fun, but maybe not what the DM had in mind. And in the OSR, the skill of improv, rolling on random tables, not knowing what the players or how the players are going to solve each obstacle they come across, and understanding that the PCs may embed themselves in the city, state, and the desert, that they may take that floating castle that you thought they were just going to crash or something, and they learn how to control the castle or the airship or whatever. Sometimes player characters just go, oh, there's a portal to another dimension, we're just going to jump through the hole and see what happens. And you go, don't head slap, I didn't even plan out They're third level. I didn't plan on them going to the outer planes at third level, right? The teaching of improv, where the PCs make a hard left turn, which players are always going to do that. You know, sometimes you need to be upfront with that and just go, guys, I didn't even plan for this. Can you give me a minute? Or hey, can we cut this short? Um, I didn't even think you guys would jump in there, and everyone's like, well, why wouldn't we? And you're looking at your notes going, that was supposed to be a sphere of annihilation. I think they all just committed suicide. And you take that note and take a sharpie and didn't happen. They decided to go to the astral plane, right? Those things can happen. Those left turns can happen with your entire group, and just embracing it and going, yeah, I've got all this extra prep that I did, kind of like do create the what's it? Oh, quantum ogering effect, and move on from there. That's a big OSR thing by just going, yeah, I know my players made a left turn, whatever. We're just going to keep on moving. Like I says, keep in mind, success is a problem all its own. We have perfect examples of that in real life, right? Killed the royal, and you're the new king. Sure, let's discuss the problems of rulership, responsibility, and intrigue. Yeah, listen. Um, One of the drawbacks to successful revolutions is feeding people, right? Like, yay, viva la revolution, whatever, right? We've taken down the evil empire. We're in control now. Yeah. And what happens when people want to tear? It's easy to tear stuff down, right? What happens? You got to build something up. And the most boring thing in the world are roads and food and security and education and infrastructure, right? All that kind of stuff is like infrastructure. Oh, what we have to balance the books this month? Okay, sure. French toast, right? I mean, there's a lot of that. There's a heck of a lot of that. Mike goes on to say, no problem. Did the level ones or threes go to the abyss? Yeah, there are low level CR demons. There could be others who took that same chance. Since we've gotten to the end here, we're going to start to wrap this up. Another myth in OSR gaming is that it was constant death, the constant churn, the idea that every time the players encounter something, it's just a death rattle, right? Turn the corner, bugbears, combat, death rattle. Players turn another corner, dragon, death rattle, right? It's just constant, and that wasn't the case. The When players encountered low level characters in OSR, encountered very powerful monsters, those monsters were role played. Yeah, the N King, not just any N King, the like the Ohio State. I live in Ohio, so we understand what the means, which is completely different word than the. The is just, you could just throw that willy nilly, but you people buy embroidered hats with just the splashed across the front, and everybody knows what that means. So I get you, N King. Now, the monsters, especially powerful ones, will parlay all the time. Now, one default is that powerful monsters just ignore the PCs. Big powerful dragon, first, second, third level characters. Dragon is just like, I don't even see you. Mike's like, yeah, death rattle with the tail shaking. Yeah, it's now going to be my Yuan T warlord. Did you hear the death rattle? Once the Yanti's warlord tail starts to rattle, everyone's like, ooh, or the death rattles echo all across the region, and everyone's like, whoa, how many do I hear? You hear enough. Um, but the wow, I just lost my train of thought. The idea that first level characters are supposed to um, uh, fight more powerful beings is never the case. You role play them though. You want you guys know I love my mid level characters. I see you there Z, and I'm going to make a comment about that in a minute. But I love mid level monsters. I love Rakshasa, Ogre Magi, or Onis. I love hags and sphinxes, and Medusa, like these characters, these monsters that are willing to talk and have a conversation and things. And powerful monsters want to live. And if they think they're in danger, they're going to parlay. If they're more powerful than player characters, they may threaten them a little bit, but they might go, you know what? What do you know? And they might just exchange information and keep passing on by. Or they might want to deal with the player characters and go, listen, I know you don't like me, and I know I don't have any reason to trust me. But on the other side of the valley, there's something you need to deal with. So step off before my agents kill you, and we've got a deal or whatever. Maybe the monsters just hide and they just let the PCs go by. There's all kinds of stuff. There was never turn corner, roll initiative, and I think um, that was the case. Zamara says, "Yeah." Says, "Thank you, DBJ, for hosting and for the beneficial parasocial relationship. I absolutely appreciate it." For those who don't know, yeah, yep, Mike says set monsters against each other and drop them in the middle. Friggin' When when imagine what the world would be like if the player characters never got involved, and if the lizard folk are fighting the lizard folk in the swamp are dead set against the orc raiders that are riding the giant scorpions, and the PCs get in the middle of that. Come what may, let it role play out. If the PCs do nothing and watch, things happen. If the PCs make an out, do one with one or the other, yeah, yeah. Frost Giant Jarl versus White Dragon versus White Wolf Pack, exactly. What do they do, and what do the NPCs, the monsters, what do they want? So, anyway, do have to get out of here. Thank you. The Yankees. Meanwhile, the players are playing Yojimbo Classic. Absolutely. But getting back to Z's Zamaro 0292's comment here. I thank all of you for being part of the show. Tomorrow is third pillar of exploration Thursday. You guys know I'm the self-appointed third pillarist of exploration in the tabletop community. I'm awaiting someone to challenge me on the battlefield, figuratively. There's got to be somebody else out there. But by the way, guys, thank you so much. I just appreciate it. Something that I don't often bring up is the fact that I'm part of Cool Name Goes Here Kickstarter. So I'm going to be part of that design group. Um, the PIP system has gotten with me to I am in just about to sign a contract with the PIP system to design some things for the PIP system as well. There's some N World has reached out to do. They are continuing to add things a to the Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition um, Ecosphere. There's most definitely going to be a Monstrous Menagerie 2 because of the success of the Monstrous Menagerie 1. And they reached out to have me write some things for it and some monsters. That might be coming as well. So I'm still involved in writing and production and things like that. So yeah, Mike's like challenge accepted. So, guys, everybody, thank you very much. Please like, share, subscribe, leave comments. Even if I don't respond, I read all the comments. I apologize if I can't respond all the time. Please come to the show 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here live on YouTube, simulcasting on Twitch as well, if you prefer that. And just be part of the show. I really appreciate it. Guys, have a great one. There you go. And like Z is as well. I'm more than happy to meet you on the battlefield. I would drop the army if you the terrain. Yeah. That would be kind of cool. Ooh. Ooh. You just sparked something in my head that we might talk about tomorrow. Okay, guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. I appreciate it. All you guys. Have a great one. Peace.